Blake, what's going on, man? Good to be back in the studio with you.
We're back. We had Christian on last week, and it was super fun to hear his story getting into the investment world.
Dude, that guy was awesome. It's so cool. Not to cut you off, but I just found that episode really interesting just because it's refreshing, I guess, on my end. Talking with you and some of the other people that we interviewed, it sounds like they just have so much experience, you know, and they've been in it for a long time, and they really know what they're doing. And it's, you know, to be blunt, kind of intimidating. And then to hear someone like him who's kind of, you know, he's not new. He's done real estate and stuff he talked about, but just being fresh into the investing world, I found that conversation to be one of the most interesting we've done. So, Christian, you rule, man. That was awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. But that's really the kind of point that I was hoping we could convey and that you'd pick up on was like, hey, you just got to take some action and just kind of get it and learn as you go. So it
is challenging, and to kind of get over the mental hurdles of, like, you know, just taking that first step and really knowing that you can do it. And also something you mentioned was, you know, knowledge without action is pretty much useless. And so I feel like I'm starting to get pretty strong on my knowledge side of things with the books that you've recommended and just talking with you and this podcast. I feel like I've learned a lot, but now it's getting time to apply that knowledge and get closer to that action step, which is scary, but we're getting there, man.
That's fun. Well, give me an update on y'all. You and Katie were going through organizing finances and putting stuff together. Do you have an update on?
Yeah, I got an update. We were kind of getting our finances in order, and then we decided, hey, it's our 10-year anniversary coming up. Let's blow a bunch of money booking a trip to Mexico. So we got that lined up. Nice. And then we also decided, man, we've been really putting off this deck project that we've been talking about for the past 6 years. So let's blow some more money and dump that into the materials. If, you know, at the time of this recording, lumber is like, I don't think it's as high as it was, but it's definitely not cheap. I mean, you're looking at $4 or $5 for a 2x4. But that is one of the big projects around the house that I have just been putting off forever. Literally, I mean, we've been in our house for like 6 years. My dad's a draftsman, you know, got him to draw up the blueprints like the first 6 months. We marked everything off. We did a cost of materials, a build list, everything, and we were ready to go. And then I just sat on it forever. And so this year was the year. It's like 2023, we're going to get on it. Nice. So over the Christmas holiday, we finally pulled the trigger. We had some good weather. It was pretty warm, you know, living here in Alabama. We get some warm weeks. And so we're out there in T-shirts and stuff and went and picked up a bunch of lumber and finally pulled the trigger and got going. And so I'm happy to say that we're about 90% done. Nice. It's about a 330 square foot off the back of my house. Yeah. Pretty low to the ground. It's only maybe like 4 steps off the ground. But that is basically what's been consuming my life. So to tie it back to real estate, you know, I'm investing in the equity of my home. And, it's been fun, man. You know, it's the first deck that I've ever built. I don't have a construction background. I mean, I work with my hands, work with tools and stuff. But, it's kind of the first time I've ever learned how to properly frame and how to get your joist spaced correctly and the proper way to cut a bunch of boards so that they all look flush and not trying to cut them individually and getting things plumb and, you know, just all the things. So it's been cool. It's been fun.
Well, it's a good time, right? It's starting to get warm. We're getting into the spring.
Oh, dude, barbecue season 2023. We're right on the edge of that. I'm so much looking forward to it. But with that, I thought it'd be a good conversation to bring to the table. Doing these projects and maybe anybody out there who's thinking about doing a project like this, how much value does having, I guess in this example, a cool outdoor living space, how much value does that bring to a home if someone's thinking about doing that, maybe to spruce up a house to sell or flip or rent, or maybe just something they want to do even though they're not necessarily looking to sell, but maybe build equity in their home? Is that a good idea?
So just like a lot of the answers I give you, it's not black and white, yes or no.
Okay, sure.
And I think it depends on what the project is. Let's take your deck specifically. So while I do think you'll probably see a 1-to-1 return on that, you're not going to make like a 20 times return on the money you spent. The fact that you're doing it yourself, you're saving probably a couple of grand in labor.
Yes.
But yeah, at least. But I think what it does is remove any opposition to a buyer. And that's something that when I go into a listing appointment, depending on how flexible and willing a seller is, it's, maybe not let's go drop $5,000 on a new deck, but it's what can we do in this house, depending on your timeline and budget, that will remove any opposition for a buyer to say, I don't like it because. We can't change location. We can't change a steep driveway or back up against an interstate, but we can change condition, right, to an extent.
To an extent.
And so what can we do in condition to really put ourselves in front of a buyer to say, hey, this is as good as this house can be with what we're working with, so we can remove any barriers of them saying, I don't like it because.
Right.
And so I think that goes along right inside, outside living space and entertaining space is pretty big where we live.
I was about to say, how
right?
important is that? Or do you run into a lot of homes that maybe don't have, when I bought our house, I mean, we didn't even have a patio. We didn't have, we have basically a front stoop, a covered entryway, if you will. It's not even a pool. The backyard was basically just grass and mud. You know, we never really spent much time in our backyard, a lot of shade. And then I think around maybe the second year I was there, I kind of did a DIY patio, just an area where I could at least set up a barbecue and grill and stuff, but still nothing fancy. So I didn't know how important that was in today's climate when people are looking at homes, people wanting to entertain. Is that how important is that?
Well, it is. So the renovations or updates you do to your home, I think, are pretty area specific as well. And so you're in Avondale, it's kind of a younger demographic coming into there. And like our age is a lot of the buyer pool that's coming into Avondale. And so our demographic overarchingly likes that outdoor entertainment space. But if we're in an area that is dominated by, 70, 80-year-old clients who don't want to deal with yard work, who maybe are not entertaining as much in their life, then is it good to drop 5, 10, 20 grand on an outdoor kitchen and living space? You probably wouldn't see that return as well as you would where you are. And so I think it's knowing your buyer pool, right? So knowing, hey, I'm thinking about doing this multi-$1,000 project in my house. Is it smart based off who is going to buy this house from me to do this project? And again, we're looking at just a financial return. There is some value from a personal enjoyment, right?
Sure.
And you can't ignore that.
If you're not moving out, if you're planning to live there for a while, yeah, sure.
So that's how, when I take down an investment, it's not going to be a primary residence for myself, and it's going to be specifically a flip. It's, okay, I could do a lot of these cool things that to me would be awesome, but is the buyer pool for this flip going to value that as much as I do?
Yeah.
And a lot of times the answer is no. Like, there's some stuff that I want to do in this new one we're doing that at the end of the day, it's like, I'm not going to see that return because...
What's an example of something?
I knew you were going to ask me that, and I've got to come up with something.
Well, while you think about that, another thing that I've been curious about, and as I get older, okay, just speaking to outdoor entertainment and things that are kind of on the more fun side of things to have at your home, swimming pools. As a kid, I was like, man, if we could ever live in a house with a swimming pool, it would just be the cat's meow. It'd be the greatest thing ever. And around the time, I guess I was my first year of college, my parents relocated to Trussville, and the house they moved into did have a pool. And it was great. We've had a lot of fun, but throughout the years, as we've gotten older, we found that we use the pool less and less, and it's almost more of a chore to keep up this pool. It's an in-ground pool. They had to put a new liner in it a couple of years ago. It's not cheap. The filtering system and stuff is pretty dated, and so that'll have to be updated soon. And I look back on experience. One of my friends from high school, their parents bought a house that had a pool, and the first thing they did was they filled it in with gravel, just immediately, just filled it in. Yeah. And I couldn't believe it. I was just like, what are you doing? So just out of my own curiosity, swimming pools, good or bad? I guess
no black and white answer, right? Yes. So swimming pool, so if I'm flipping a house, I'm never putting a swimming pool in unless it is in a destination area where every other house has a swimming pool.
So that's not on your list of things in the flip.
You're going to spend, a pool, man. I mean, I've never built a pool, but I can only imagine the minimum $40,000. Yeah. If you're, up to who knows how much. So I don't think so. So for this house specifically that we're flipping in Hoover, I love big open spaces. So the master bathroom, I went ahead and did this because it only cost me maybe an extra $1,500, but none of the walls inside the master bath are load bearing, so it's easy for me to open it all up and vault the ceiling to the roof line. So the ceilings in the master bath we're doing are like 15, 16 feet tall.
Wow.
I went ahead and did that. Probably would see some value add there.
But you just like doing this.
I just like doing it, and it didn't cost me a ton. But where I stopped was if it were my house, I'd put in 2 or 3 skylights, and that'd cost $3,000 to $5,000 more. That I don't see the return on. because
Skylights, is that
Yeah.
is that a trendy thing these days?
no, but I did it in my
Okay.
own bathroom at our house. We vaulted the master suite, kind of the same thing, and then put in the skylight. And man, it's awesome. During the day, don't turn any lights on. It's just
You go in there, it's
yeah,
just beautiful. You get your
it's great.
sauna going.
Yeah, it's
and
weird
stuff.
when you see someone's drone above there. But
Yeah,
so that
Squirrel running
that's right. But that's where I don't see the value. No one's going to come in and say, "Dang, I would buy this house, but there's no skylights
There's no
in this
skylight,
vaulted
dude. I'm
ceiling."
not buying this.
Right. The vault to the ceiling in the master bathroom is by itself so unique to the area that's going to make it hopefully stand apart from other houses these buyers are going to look at. Right. Because no other bathroom probably is going to have that. And so throwing in an extra $5,000 for skylights isn't really going to be the tipping point,
Okay. But the vaulted ceiling may be kind of the wow factor. It's
Yeah.
like, ooh, check this out. Something unique,
Yep.
something different than the last 3 houses I've toured.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Speaking to that and the vaulted ceilings, and you said yourself you like the wide open spaces. Selling for as long as you have and being in this industry, I'm sure there are trends and things that come in and go out. I think we've mentioned, Fixer Upper with the shiplap and the barn style decor and stuff. What are some trends that are definitely worth doing that people want? I mean, I would think the wide open spaces. I know that when I walk into a home that has like a separate dining room, that is just like a huge turnoff for me. It's just like that is a room that's never going to get used. You know what I mean? Like it's just a waste of space. And some friends of my parents actually had a separate dining room that they knocked down the wall and opened it all up. And it's just like, why haven't we always been building houses like this? Like, who wants a separate dining room? But just stuff like that.
Yeah, it is. So the past, 5 to 7 years, it's everything white, clean, white across the board, darker floors. Now we're starting to see light floors come in.
Really? Okay.
Not really like if you go back to the 90s, you have that kind of yellow golden sheen. It's not really that. It's more of like a whitewash, maybe a little bit of gray in the stain. Or a lighter brown color.
I can see that.
Kind of beachy feel.
Yeah,
which I like. I kind of like that look. So we'll do the floors in this house like that. Probably still white paint, but what we're seeing coming in 2013 is more of a bold accent with it, meaning a dark wall to complement it. Or I saw one last week that I really liked. That they painted all the doors dark. It was like a dark navy up against white walls. So something that
pop of color.
Yeah, pop. So which in the past 5 years that was not. I'd see it every now and then, but it's not as pronounced. But now in the past month or two, I'm really starting to see turn properties and new builds come in with more bold statements like that. And then especially when people stage or furnish their house from brand new, they're bringing in kind of like an older style, like 60s, 70s vibe to the furniture, but like in a modern way.
Yeah.
And it's funky, and I'm for it. I really like it.
What is the catalyst that pushes these shifts in home style? Is it just TV, popular culture? I mean, what is the?
That's a good
if you had
question.
to put your finger on it, like what drives these? Like the '70s style decor. I've definitely seen a lot of that. We're guilty of it ourselves. And if you go to any thrift style store trying to hunt for some of these furniture items, you're going to pay ridiculous amount of money for just like I don't even know. I don't know decor styles, but I would just say something you'd see like in a 70s bungalow or something maybe. But just really expensive pieces of furniture. They're really cool. But I've always wondered, like, how are these trends coming up? Like, when did we move away from shiplap and now suddenly this is in and nobody wants to do that anymore? And maybe I answered my own question just with TV.
That's my best guess. I really don't know where it comes from, but it's taking hold and it's coming on. So I don't think we'll get too wild with anything because as a flip and an investment, you don't want to shut off any buyer pool automatically from having X, Y, or Z, right? So like if I put it in a pool, people usually either want a pool or they don't.
Hate a pool. There's no in between.
There usually is not an in between. Every now and then there could be. So for me to put in a pool, I'm immediately shrinking my buyer pool before I even go to market. And so what I want to do is try to appeal to the masses, but I don't want to come in and just be a stark white, bland, another flip, right? So I want to do things a little differently to where it stands out because it's hard for it not to look like, hey, it's an empty investment property. Like this was obviously a flip. Like it's going to have some kind of feel of that. But if we can do some unique things like the master bath or do I don't know the name for any other prints, but like a chevron print wall, but maybe not that print, whatever the style would be. an extra trim work, and that's where I'm going to try to kick it up a notch, is do a little extra trim work, especially since that's kind of my background. I'll get in there, and it's fun for me to have a free day to go in there and throw in something unique from a trim standpoint that I can do. And so one of the things we're throwing in is a little, the pot filler is the thing that goes above your stove.
Yeah, I think I saw your TikTok about that.
Yeah, so we're throwing that in.
That,
yeah, so it's basically a faucet that comes off the wall above your stove so you can fill your pots in. We're doing that. Love to do that on all of them. I'm going to get a second one that's in the pantry about 2 feet off the ground and build in some dog bowl holders, and it's going to swing out over the dog bowls so you can fill it. So something unique. Again,
just cool little flare, I guess.
And it'll be kind of down low. It's not in your face. So someone, again, not trying to shrink my buyer pool for people who hate dogs. If that's the case, you're not my buyer anyways. But that's something that, hey, we don't have a dog. You just kind of push it out of the way, right? Yeah. Or at the end of the day, I'll cancel it for you if you want me to, because it doesn't cost that much to run that. But it's one of those things that it's just a little bit extra. Yeah. It's just like the master bath ceiling. It cost me $1,500. This will cost me less than $1,000 to do. And I think it's just something a little bit more unique that's not the same old, here's the White House flip.
Right. I didn't know if there was some things that you kind of bring to the table no matter what the flip is. Maybe the paint color and stuff. You're not going with any hot pink anywhere. Or anything like that. Man, I have this memory of being in elementary school or maybe it was high school, and one of my teachers saying, back in my day, every room was a different color, and that's the way we liked it. And now everybody wants the whole house looking the same. It's like, why is everybody so boring? Yep. And I don't know if we'll ever get back to that, but I know, I often question myself, well, why is that? Like, why is it that when I walk into a house and see, which is rare these days, I think you sent me one, actually. You were getting ready to sell a house, and every room, you had a green, you had a purple, you had a pink. It was all over the place. Yeah. And I don't know why, suddenly, I guess everybody woke up and was like, this is not appealing. Yeah. Why are we doing this? Quit doing this.
Yeah. Well, and I'll still go into houses where you have multicolored rooms and different things. I think when you go to sell, maybe someone does like not the same color in every single room, but it's not the colors that you pick.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, they see, instead of a white canvas, if you will, they see, wow, I see a lot of different colors and a lot of different work. While I like multicolored houses, I don't like your colors.
Sure. So it's basically better if you're trying to sell a house. Kind of get a blank canvas where your seller can sort of imagine their own.
Yeah, which is it's a constant battle because, again, I want to come in and do like some cool, unique things, but it's like, but if I do that, like, it's not going to.
Is that just appealing to me, or is that going to appeal to the masses?
Right. And so it's a balance of that. So I've got a good friend, shout out Shelby, who's she works in material supply, like faucets and tiles and that kind of stuff, but she has a great eye for design. And so she's actually helping with this house come in and bringing the laundry up was her idea, and making like a big laundry pantry kind of area. But having her come in and give that input, and it's a good balance for me to say, like, all right, that's a great idea, but it's not going to sell. So having that.
How important is, I don't know if I've asked this question, and forgive me for anybody that's listening if I have, how important when you're going to sell a house is staging? Is that something you guys always do? Or is an empty house sell just as well as a staged home?
The past 2.5, 3 years, it has sold as well. So it's kind of dependent, right? So if we're in kind of a more obscure part of town or something's kind of funky with the house that, again, would be an impediment for a buyer to decide, hey, I like this house, then it may be worth staging. We don't stage every house. Okay. I do, for every listing we bring a stager in, and they help rearrange furniture or tell a client, hey, there's too much in this room, we need to remove half of it. They might bring
homes that are already occupied.
That's right, yeah, occupied them, yeah. So they might bring in some fake plants and rolls of white towels, just to kind of dress the place up a little bit and make sure it's going to, with, again, owner occupied, with what is there, with what furniture the seller has, we're going to maximize what the space could look like.
Right.
But very rarely are we in a vacant home furnishing the entire home to set the stage. Now we will, again, when it's necessary, but it's kind of case by case.
That $1 million beach home.
Right. Yeah.
Staging that.
Yeah.
One.
And staging is expensive, so it's.
I know it is. It's crazy. Yeah. And I can't tell you. I mean, just to speak to that, looking at places when we go to the beach and stuff. Not so much me. Not to throw my wife under the bus, but she will immediately turn down a really good location, really nice place, plenty of room if they have bad furniture.
Really?
She can't stand it. Or if the walls are painted a weird color, or, especially when you go to the beach, Like some of them are dated and a little tacky, and you know the styles have certainly changed. And we find some of these condos that just like they've been rocking the same bowl of seashells and the pink bathroom and everything for the past 30 years, and that's just a huge turn down. Regardless of like, look at the space. It's got 3 bedrooms. We can take our whole family. It's right on the water. No, it's got a pink bathroom. Oh my god,
that's funny.
And it's just like, okay, I guess there's some weight to this. You know, aesthetics.
Yeah,
definitely has a huge impact.
It does. And jumping back earlier, you mentioned wide open spaces versus kind of segmented spaces. So this may be. I would love to hear our listeners' thoughts on this and feedback. But stages of life. So for me, before we had our daughter, she's 20 months now. It was, and if you come to our house, there are no interior walls basically besides bedrooms. Like it's kitchen, living room, dining room, sunroom, off. It's all one big.
It's all one big space.
Yeah, and we love it. But now that we have a daughter, it's like, man, I wish we need a playroom. Like, because if you start playing anywhere but your room, and anyone comes over, they're gonna see it, and it's just and so now in my mindset, and I'm working again. I just kind of work with my own demographic and age group. With a lot of them have kids. It's when we go look at houses, I'm starting to hear feedback of, hey, this is a little bit too open, and it's for that reason. And so I'm curious, and this is where I want to hear from our listeners: is that just stage of life thing, or is that kind of a phase or a fad coming in, or a new style desire coming in from a buyer pool? I'm curious to know that.
I am too. You know, I get off on, I watch a lot of real estate videos just for fun. I don't know why I'm weird that way, but a really popular thing, especially in Texas, is these barn dominiums. Like,
oh yeah,
that is the thing. And at first, Katie and I, my wife, the first video I popped, I was like, check this out. It's basically a giant warehouse building that they have turned into a livable space inside. And I was kind of like, you know, being a guy, I'm like, oh, this is great, man. If I ever need to pull the truck in the living room, I could, you know, change the oil.
Yeah.
And at first, Katie was like, no, that's way too big. I feel like I'm sitting in the lobby of a hotel if I'm sitting in my living room. Like, I'm not into that. But over time, as we watch those videos, because I would just have them playing in the background, and Instagram or YouTube knows your algorithm, and so they'll suggest more videos. It's kind of grown on her to the point. To take it back a little bit, when my wife and I first got married, we had a house plan drawn up. And it was basically it was called the Sugarberry Cottage. It was kind of a beachy style home that was basically had an open living room and kitchen, but you know, a little bit on the smaller side, maybe 1,500, 2,000 square feet, not small, but smaller, and separate bedrooms everywhere. And after watching these YouTube videos and stuff, we went back and pulled up the plans. I was like, because I had a binder that had pictures of the exterior as well as the interior wall design. And we're both looking at it. We're like, man, this feels really small. It feels really closed in. Like,
where are my 30-foot ceilings?
Where are my 30-foot ceilings? Where are my giant open spaces?
Yeah.
And it really, to the point where it was like, hey, if we buy a piece of property, we'll build this house. Now we are seriously second-guessing that. It's like, man, I would kind of like to have everything just on one level, just like one big open area. Yeah. Other than the bedrooms, basically the living room, the kitchen, the dining room, the dining area, even to the exterior space with big windows and stuff, it feels like one. And so, I don't know, just out of my own curiosity, I'm just wondering, is that where we're trending to? Or like you said, maybe people are wanting to go back to more like, I want a reading room, and I want like a playroom, and I want to kind of feel like I'm not just sitting in the middle of a lobby.
Yeah. Well, and, I'm curious to hear if that's just stage.
So let us know.
Thing.
Leave a comment. Send us an email. Yeah.
We had, I think I told you this, but about 6 months ago or 4 months ago, we had plans drawn to take the roof off our house and go up a level and basically redo the whole thing.
Wow.
Which Rachel was like, you've spent the last 7 years customizing this entire house. And I was like, well,
take the roof off and go up.
We're just going up. Yeah. Because our location it's one of a kind. I mean, we've got a view, we've got an acre, we've got right in the heart of Bluff Park. It's not replaceable.
Right.
And so, and the house is fine. It's a little over 2,000 square feet. It's more than enough for us. But if we have another kid, it's going to get tight pretty quickly. And so, if that day comes, it's like, all right, we probably need to make a change. We don't have to, we can make it work.
That's
but
pretty
it'd be
intense, man. Rip the roof off and go up a level.
Oh, yeah.
That's like, hey, let's build a new house on top of our
Well,
house.
and so here's the cool thing, because everyone's like, oh, that's so much money, you just rich guy. I've talked to a bank already and figured it out. Between we talked to Christian about this a little bit when he was doing the Burr method, but between the construction work that we've done, and we've owned it 8 years, so it's appreciated a ton, I've added so much value into the property. It's worth so much more than what we have in it, that there is enough equity for a bank to lend me. I'm estimating about a $400,000 remodel to do that. There's enough equity, and there's not $400,000 of equity, but there's enough in there for the bank to be comfortable of what the after repair value would be to fund the entire renovation and just change my payment or refinance for the new thing. And it would cost an extra $2,500 a month of a mortgage payment to do it. So it wouldn't cost me any cash up front to do the project. And we have a free place to stay with family in town. So again, it doesn't cost anything to do it. And then at the end of the day, probably a year project, it costs us an extra $2,500 a month. So in my mind, before we even consider pulling the trigger, I've got to go find investment property that spits off at least $2,500 a month.
Cash flow at $2,500. Yeah.
And so it's a free upgrade in my head.
In your head, no,
right?
Well,
and
that's
so
some Blake math going on.
That's where we're at. So I'm not creating this idea. I've heard it from a lot of people. But when you come across something that's expensive or that you want, it's all right. What am I going to buy that's going to fund that? So I want a new car. All right, the payment's $600 a month. All right, I've got to maybe I've got the cash to buy it, or maybe I've got the credit to put it on credit and it's $600 a month. What if I take that cash and go invest it in something that gives me $600 a month of cash flow, and then I can buy the car?
That's a free car.
Essentially a free car, right?
Free
I mean, it
car,
takes the cash for the.
Now,
down
is that a
payment
rich
for the
dad,
property.
poor dad?
I don't know if it comes from that book
like
or
that.
I've just heard it throughout the years.
I think in some chapter he talks about his wife wanting a BMW.
Okay.
And he's basically like, okay, you can buy the BMW, you just have to figure out how to pay for it.
Yeah.
Using the method that you just talked about. And then once she did those steps and was able to get it, she felt so much better about the purchase just because it's like, wow, not only did I buy this car that I wanted, but I created an avenue of cash flow that's paying for it.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Well, and when I kind of got started having some success in here, the mindset was things like, oh my gosh, I want the car. Like, what would it take to get a Lamborghini? It's $1,500 a month. Okay. Well, by the time I get to $1,500 of cash flow on a property, it's like I could buy a Lamborghini, or I could take this money, burr it, get my cash back out, and do it again and again and again. Yeah. And I kind of saw it last week in Christian's eyes, like it's an addiction in a good way.
Yeah.
It's like he's hooked. He's already talking. He was sitting at the closing table talking about buying a multifamily.
Yeah.
Like it's the value that a Lamborghini would add to my life now versus 5 years ago is like crazy change. Like 5 years ago, I was like, oh, I want it. I need it. Now I'm like, what am I going to do? I don't care.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like that does nothing for my life. But if I go and buy 10 more houses, then, I mean, 20 years from now, I can go buy as many Lamborghinis as I want. Yeah. I probably won't want to, but
probably won't want to.
So it's kind of a cool way to look at it.
That is cool. Well, I don't know if you have anything else to add, but man, it's cool.
That was good. Nice little short episode, just kind of catching up on life and where we're at. But
I'll send you some pictures of my deck. I'm very proud of it. I'm like basically at like the 90-95% being done.
When you throw them up on the podcast.
Yeah, we will. I'll get you some pictures, and then man, barbecue season's right around the corner, so we're gonna have a big.
Looking forward
to
barbecue. Next things to do is put a little pump track for the mountain bikes in your backyard.
Yeah, in the backyard, definitely. There's a lot of uphills, so get the calves burning. But man, cool. Good talking to you.
See you next time.